Hello, everybody. How are you all doing? I hope you're all having a wonderful time. Uh, I hope you saw my last video about writing an essay introduction. If you have not watched the video yet, I would recommend you to watch that video first before watching this video because this is a continuation of the introduction, and in this videos I'm going to talk about how paragraphs are to be written to score high in PTE writing essay. Okay, let's begin. So, just to give you a brief overview of what we discussed in the introduction topic, I've just put the format here, which is there any relation between keyword 1 and keyword 2? That's your first statement of introduction. And the second statement is while some progressively adore the ideology that prompt in your own words, others undoubtedly despise it. This essay will prudently persuade why and how we will explain the relation between the two keywords and the question prompt. So this is just a template that I've put in here, but how we have come up with this template, how to logically understand this template, there is absolutely no need to by heart this because in my previous video I've explained you how you need to figure out the keywords from the prompt and easily write this introduction. So please watch my introduction as video before watching this. That will help you give a better understanding of what I'm trying to convey here. Okay, so that's about introduction. I wouldn't spend much time on introduction in this video. The vocabulary words in the introduction that we used, like relation, progressively adore, which means increasingly like, uh, ideology, philosophy, or thought, and then undoubtedly despise it, which is without any doubt dislike something. Then prudently persuade is where we are carefully investigating something, which is explaining what our essay will explain. So I'm just telling you the meanings of this vocabulary words that we have used here, just to make sure we all are on same page. I've mentioned the definitions as well in this slide if you want to go through. Yeah, that should be all about introduction. Go through the first video first and then start from here. Otherwise, it might become a little more complex. Okay, let's start the paragraphs. How to easily write paragraphs in a very good way, which will help us score better in the essay. So this PT essay, right? It There are three important things. One is vocabulary. You need to make sure, or you need to tell the software that you have good vocabulary. That's why we need to put in some high quality vocabulary words, at least some good words. So we have put quite a few words in the introduction, about eight, which I've explained earlier, and how these will be the four vocabulary words that we will be using in the paragraphs. Four is a very low number, I know that, but again, that is the thought, right? Let us make our job easy. So, since we need a lot, at least 10 to 20 vocabulary words, why not put them in introduction and conclusion? So, conclusion will be my next video where I'll explain you what kind of words I'll put in there. But we have already put like 8 words, 8 good vocabulary words in introduction. I'm putting 4 in the conclusion, which is 12, and we'll put one or two or three, 4 words in conclusion, and one or two words will come from the keywords. So overall, at least 20 good words will be there in the essay, and that's how you will increase your vocabulary score. That's the thought. That's why putting high quality words in introduction is more easy and more important. So make sure you watch my introduction video. Okay, coming back to the paragraph. So these are the 4 words that we will be using in our paragraphs. I have clearly explained how we should understand the question prompt, understand what the question prompt is asking us to argue about, and then choose one particular side of the argument, not choose both arguments, to not argue on both sides. The thought is we should choose one side and argue only for that side. this thing I've explained in the introduction video again. So after we choose one side, we came up with two ideas in the introduction. Those two ideas we will put in these two paragraphs, and both ideas, we are saying that the both ideas are absolutely necessary for the topic. So absolutely necessary, I'm using two different ways to say. One is indispensable, which means absolutely necessary. The other one is categorically essential, which means certainly required. So the two ideas are absolutely necessary or certainly required to support our topic. That is the thought, and that is why we are using these two words or phrases. The other two words are critical. We all know critical means important. We'll use this word in the example that we give to support our idea in the paragraph. And laudable is something which is praiseworthy, appreciable, or deserving praise. We'll use this word as well in our example. So I just wanted to give you guys a overview of the words that we will be using in paragraphs, so the paragraphs will appear easier once we know the meanings. So that's what I'm explaining right here. If you have any doubts about these words, you can feel free to comment and ask, and I should be able to answer your questions. Okay, so here we are. uh, we will have only four sentences in our paragraphs. We'll have two paragraphs. Okay, so the four sentences are divided like this. The first sentence is the idea that we got in our introduction. So I'll just flip and go back to our introductions slide. This is just one slide from the introductions video that we made. So we decided that we will come up with within the first 2 minutes of the question, we will choose one particular side and then come up with two supporting ideas. So highly qualified engineers develop nations infrastructure, that was the first idea. Then skilled politicians fetch international investments into their country, this was the second idea. So we came up with two ideas to support the topic and argument side within the first 2 minutes of the question. So these two statements, right, they will directly go into the first sentence of each of these two paragraphs. So indirectly within the by the time you complete your introduction, you already have your first statement of the two paragraphs. So that's why it is more important to come up with proper ideas in the first 2 minutes, which I was stressing on in my previous video. So if you understand how you should come up with these ideas, the first sentence will be straightforward. You just need to write an idea supporting the topic. Okay, and second sentence, we want to write a complex sentence. How to write a complex sentence is a question that many of us have. I'll try to put up a video on how to write complex sentence as well. But for now, let's understand that it will be good for our essay to have at least two complex sentences, and if they both go into the paragraphs, it will show a complex logical thinking about writing paragraphs, which will help us get more marks. Okay, and to write these complex sentences, or the second sentence in fact, we will use transitional phase. So when I was saying that vocabulary is very important for scoring high in PTE essays, there are a couple of other things which are of good importance. Apart from vocabulary, we should make sure we write good transitional phrases. Transitional phrases will are actually used to pass on from one sentence to another sentence, or connect from one sentence to another sentence. And then the third thing is the connection between each sentence, and connection between the conclusion and the idea, things like that. So vocabulary, transitional phrases, and connections, these are very important to score high in an essay. Okay, so transitional phrases that we will use for the second sentence are in other words or in addition. How we will use these two transitional phrases, I can explain in the next slides. And like I said, the vocabulary that we will use is indispensable or categorically essential. The third sentence will be an example, and It can be a made up example. It doesn't necessarily have to be a fact or a correct example. It can just be some example which may not be true in real life, but it should be some example supporting your idea. So for this example, the transitional phrases we will use are for instance and in fact, and the vocabulary that we will use are critical and laudable. The fourth sentence of the paragraph will be a conclusion statement concluding the paragraph, and here the transitional phrases that we will use are therefore and thus. So therefore will go into first paragraph, thus will go into second paragraph. Similarly, for instance, will go into first paragraph, in fact will go into second paragraph. So in the fourth sentence, when we are concluding, the most important thing is, sorry, link the concluding statement back to the topic. This is very, very important. If we write this properly, only then you'll get a higher score. Make sure you understand this. Okay, so I'll move on to the next slide. Okay, the first sentence, right? I've already explained this slide. Both ideas, like I've said in the introduction PPT that was presented in the previous video, both sentences as it is will go into the paragraph as a first sentence. Nothing much to explain here. So these two statements came back from the 2 minutes at the beginning, right? That's what came in here. Okay, the second sentence, complex sentence, we'll use these two transitional phrases and vocabulary words. So this is our second sentence for the example where we were talking about education and how it's going to help a nation progress. So in other words, so when we say this thing, right, highly qualified engineers develop nation's infrastructure. For this particular sentence, the second sentence would be in other words. So say the same thing, say your first idea in a slightly different words. So you have said that highly qualified engineers develop nation's infrastructure, right? So how do they do that? In other words, engineers are indispensable. So use this thing, absolutely necessary, right? So whatever you pick up in your idea, say that it is absolutely necessary. So engineers are indispensable for a nation's development. So as they understand the structural health of the nation's infrastructure, such as bridges, roads, and railways. That's it. So just say it in a different word. If we go for the second example, where I mentioned skilled politicians fetch international investments into their country, in the second paragraph, rather than saying it in different words or using uh, in other words, we will use in addition, and rather than saying in another words, you just add more information to it. So for this particular second paragraph, skilled politicians fetch international investments into their country, you add some more information here. So before so this second part is adding information, but again first part, right, this statement say that good politicians are categorically essential. So the first uh, couple of phrases of both paragraphs are going to use the transition phrase and then use the vocabulary words and say the idea is necessary or politicians are required, right? So till here it's a generic thing, and after that you write your ideas in different words or add some more information to support your idea. So in addition, good politicians are categorically essential for developing the country. As such, it is the responsibility of finance minister to meet with foreign delegates to look for opportunities that could bring cash flow into their own country. So same thing, but in different words, and you're adding a little more information in the second paragraph. That's it. Simple. Okay. So we have used some vocabulary here. So in this part, right, where you're writing a lengthy complex statement, try to use some words which are synonyms of the keywords given in the uh, prompt, like developing or responsibility, country, for this example, right? Here, development, infrastructure, roads, bridges, all these are vocabulary words. So these will also add some points, but again, these are our own words. We can write different based on the question prompt. So just be careful and try to phrase this sentence a little better. And again, I will put a example to put a video to tell you guys how to write a complex sentence. So if this doesn't look so easy right now, I'll try to make it a bit more easier. But this is the thought: we have to write a long complex sentence in the second statement of both the paragraphs. Okay, now moving to third sentence. So third sentence should always be an example supporting your idea. And for example, we are going to use for instance and in fact in the second paragraph. So you can write something like this: according to the structural health check report published by the National Transportation Board. Try to use this statement, okay? According to something published by something, some percentage of something has happened and then it is critical, blah blah blah. Write something, okay? It's nothing, uh, no need to make it 100% real statement. You can write anything. So just write according to something published by something during the year something, or some percentage has something. Okay, just keep it so simple. Don't worry too much about this statement. All it matters is we are using for instance, comma, and then some vocabulary words and give some sort of example supporting your idea. So here, according to the structural health check report published by the National Transportation Board, 30% of bridges in the country have critical fundamental structural flaws. Flaws means issues, and they need fixing. That's it. So need immediate fixes. So there are some problems with infrastructure and that needs to be fixed. That's one example that you're saying why engineers are important, because they understand it. And regarding the politicians, in fact, the Indian Finance Minister Mr. Arun Jaitley completed a laudable project that got Japan to invest $4 billion into development of Indian Social Welfare Trust. Okay, this is again, this is not a fact, and it doesn't have to be a fact. So just say, in fact, somebody did something which is laudable, so that you can include your vocabulary words. Laudable, it is appreciable. You're indirectly saying somebody did something which is good, and it helped develop the nations, or it helped support the topic. Your idea helped support the topic. That's what you're trying to say here. Something like this, your third statement. So fourth statement is the concluding statement of the paragraph, and we are using two words, thus or and therefore. And the most important thing in the last statement is link your idea to the topic. That is the most important. Link idea back to topic. Absolutely necessary. So what are we writing here? Thus, by identifying and fixing structural issues, engineers can maintain and develop the nation's infrastructure. So what was our topic here? Will the nation develop? Yes, we will maintain and develop the nation. Okay, who will do it? Engineers. So idea was, engineer is an educated person, so educated person is helping maintain and develop nation. That's how you are indirectly linking your idea to topic here. In this case, therefore, a well educated politician can contribute towards a nation's growth. So we are saying well educated and nation's growth. That's how you're linking. So this is how you should write your concluding statement. Link your idea to the topic. That's all. So four sentences done. Here is the complete example. So I've written those four statements in one slide, so you know. So this thing, right, is your first statement from the introduction which we got: highly qualified engineers develop nation's infrastructure. Second statement, in other words, engineers are indispensable for nation's development as they understand the structural health of the nation's infrastructure such as bridges, roads and railways. For instance, according to the structural health check report published by the National Transportation Board, 30% of bridges in the country have critical fundamental structural flaws. So statements like these, right? Fundamental structural flaws. These are good statements which will get you some points. But so go through this video a couple of times and try to understand what I'm trying to write here, how I'm making the paragraph good and complex, and statements which link with each other and then indirectly link to the topic, something like this. Okay, thus conclusion. So this is about 76 words. If we go with our second paragraph, it's the same four statements written here, it's about 85 words. Again, this is a good paragraph, which will have some good vocabulary, good keywords from the topic, some idea, some support to the idea, some example, conclusion to linking the idea back to the topic. So this is how you need to write your paragraphs. Okay. So what are the advantages of writing paragraphs this way? As I have told you earlier, transitional phrases, built-in vocabulary, so you don't have to think much about vocabulary in the exam. One simple idea. Always make sure the paragraph has only one idea. We are not supposed to have more than one ideas in paragraphs. Otherwise, you will lose points. Okay. One complex statement. This is not mandatory. This is not required. If you're able to write it correctly, only then write. And if you write, it is good. But this is not mandatory. The way I'm making it complex here is we are, in other words, something is categorically essential. Here itself is a, we have two phrases, in other words, and this thing. And then whatever you write here, right, it automatically becomes a complex statement. That's how I was saying. We put complex statements and it will become better. And an example is easy. You don't have to buy hard or remember something. Just write whatever. Ensure that you are writing in this format. In fact, somebody from something did something good. Okay. Example and note. So most important things. Ensure the idea links back to the topic in conclusion. And do not take more than 6 minutes to complete each paragraph. So introduction we completed in 5 minutes, and how exactly we planned, we developed our introduction, everything is there in my previous video. Watch it. In this video, paragraphs do not spend more than 6 minutes for each paragraph. So in total, introduction 5 minutes, two paragraphs, 6 into 2, 12, 12 plus 5, 17 minutes are over, and you have a very good introduction and very good two paragraphs. In these 6 minutes, make sure you complete the paragraph, review it for spelling mistakes, grammar, vocabulary, any mistakes. After 6 minutes is a decent time, okay, because we already have our first statement, right? We already had this statement, first statement in both paragraphs during our introduction only. So we are only spending 6 minutes to write this thing and review everything else. Okay, 6 minutes is more than enough. Spend 6 minutes, complete it correctly, don't make any mistakes, review it thoroughly couple of times. In 6 minutes you should be able to complete each paragraph. So 17 minutes are done. You have introduction and two paragraphs. Okay, conclusion and how the essay is scored, why this template, why this format, or why these keywords, why these vocabulary words, and how these transitional phrases will give us more marks, I will explain in the conclusion video, and then you'll understand why writing this way is more important. Okay guys, that's all for now. I'll soon upload the conclusion video. Again, before watching this video, if you have not watched the introduction video, you must watch that, otherwise this may not make a lot of sense. If you like my videos, give it a thumbs up, subscribe, share. I will upload more videos on each sections of PT to help you all from my experience. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask. Thank you very much. Have a good day. Bye.